Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to part one of a three-part webinar series From Chaos to Code, Rewriting India's Labor Playbook. Today's session is on the big rewrite and wage architecture. I am Dhanasvi Mistry from the advisory team at Karma Global. And joining me today are Mr. Pratik Vaidya, our Managing Director and Chief Vision Officer, Mr. Archit Kulkarni, our Vice President, Head of Compliance, and Ms. Sadaf Khan, our Head of Legal and Advisory. To begin the session, Sadaf and Arjit will take you through part A of overall gist, and further, Mr. Pratik will take you through part B of Code on Wages 2019. Over to you, Sadaf.
Okay, hello. Yes, can you hear me now? Yes. Thank you so much, Dhanaswi. And firstly, I would like to thank you all for such an overwhelming response that you've given us. We've received more than 1,326 registrations. However, due to the online limit constraint, currently 1,000 viewers are live with us. So thank you so much, everyone. Now, I'd like to take this moment to give a brief about and give an intro on the four labor codes. So this is a brief overview. So let us first start how the commencement of the four labor codes came into place. Where do we stand as on 21st November 2025? And this session specifically is divided into two parts. So as Dhanasvi had clearly mentioned, the part A is the overview of the labor codes, which Archit and I will be taking you through. The part B is a specific in-depth understanding on the Code on Wages 2019. So we start on the presentation then. All right. So, as you all know, there were four labor codes that came into place. The first one was the Code on Wages 2019, the Code on Social Security 2020, Industrial Relations Code 2020, and the Occupational Safety, Health, and Working Conditions Code, which is also in 2020. So, before we go into the depths of understanding what these codes are, let us first understand the background of it. What is the purpose of this entire part A of introduction of the codes? Which is moreover to record from when the codes got enacted and the repel and saving part of it, from which date each of this code came into force, and the earlier central acts which it has replaced at the moment. So, to give you a brief understanding of the history behind it, earlier there were a lot of discrepancies because there were multiple acts under the labor laws. So, as of now, 29 acts have been covered in all of these labor codes. So, earlier it was like you had to create multiple registrations, have to keep multiple registers, and even the definition differed from each act. So, for example, in Payment of Wages Act, there'll be a definition of wages, whereas the same would not be under the Factories Act, and it would also differ under the CLRA. So, to create a very harmonious environment, these labor codes were enacted. The central government in 2020 and 2019 specifically released the first draft, and accordingly, these drafts, after getting the comments and everything, were published on the official gazette. So, accordingly, uh, they were published on the official gazette. So, to simplify these, on 21st November 2025, these codes were officially enforced. So I would like to first take the opportunity to give an overview on the first two codes, which is the Code on Wages and the Social Security Code. So, as I've already mentioned, all of these were enforced on 21st November 2025. However, it is very imperative to note the codes were enforced. The rules are yet to be released by the government. They're supposed to be created and released by the government, but as of now, it's only the codes that have been enforced. So, the Code on Wages. What exactly did the Code on Wages do? They created a defined terminology which will be common for all of these acts. Like, for example, they introduced wages, the concept of 50% basic rule in wages, the national flow wage rates, which was set to by the central government and to be revised every 5 years. Then they even gave up this new concept wherein the time bound payment was supposed to be there. Earlier, there was a time limit up till 10th to be paid every month in the salary part. Now it's only till 7 that every single establishment has to make the payments. Then a new concept was also introduced, which is the compounding of the first offenses. So now in this compounding of the offenses part, it is that 50% of your offense amount of fine. For example, if it is 1 lakh, so if you even submit 50,000, so that much will be enough to compound your first offense only. From the second and subsequent offenses, they won't be compounded. So for more details and in-depth knowledge of this will be provided by Pratik in the subsequent part 2 of the presentation and this session. So now we'll go on to which of these acts were specifically used in and codified in the Code on Wages and what is repelled. So the Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Payment of Bonus Act 1965, and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976 has been repelled. So what continues? The existing bonus and wage rules have been still being continued until and unless more better rules are being formed and they are being enforced. So the legacy rules remains valid. The notification continue to apply, deemed to be under the new wage framework, which is the penalties and all will be under the new ones. But the compliance as of now will still be on the old code. So until replaced by the old code based rules. Then we'll move on to the next one, which is the Code on Social Security 2020. Now, this code was also published in the year 2020, and the main objective of this code was to get one governing body on all the 9 acts which provide social security to every individual. Multiple acts which we will cover soon enough. And just to give you a brief overview on this, there was an administrative body which this specific code creates, wherein a social security organization is to be created by this code, which will make sure that every single employee, whoever is covered under this code, is given all the benefits and can take on all the privileges as provided by this code. So the operational date for all of the 4 codes is 21st November. And one of the major aspects that this code specifically gave up was it included the unorganized sector. So in unorganized sector, specifically the gig workers, the platform-based workers, which are basically people who work on short time, on demand, and task-based work, they were included for the first time. Otherwise, previously, they were not a part of any of the labor laws. Then we had the employee compensation, which are also covered for them. Maternity benefits that are given to them now. ESIC, EPF framework is being revised and combined into this. The gratuity is given. So one of the more best part about gratuity was earlier there was a time frame of 5 years to be completed by a normal employee for being eligible for gratuity. Now, as per the Social Security Code, for fixed term employees that are contractual employees normally over there on 1 year basis or 2 years basis on a contractual agreement will now also be covered for gratuity. Once they complete 1 year, they will be eligible for gratuity. This is one of the best thing that's given by this code. So let us take a look on which of the acts have been codified and consolidated in this social security code. So there are 9 acts that are covered in here. The Employees Compensation Act, the ESI Act, the Senior Workers Welfare Fund Act, Employees Exchange Act, Maternity Benefit Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, BOCW Welfare Cess Act, Unorganized Workers Social Security Act, and the EPF and MP Act. So these are the main acts which will provide social security funds for these ones. They are all covered. However, it is very important to note LWF and PT are not covered in any of these codes. So moreover, I'll be handing it over to Mr. Archit, and he will be giving you an overview about the IR code and the OSH code. So handing over to you, Archit.
Uh, Thank you, Sada, for giving us the brief about the 2 codes. Let me begin with the Industrial Relations Code, or as it is called as IR code. As you all know, IR code has come into effect along with all other codes on 21st of November. And these code mainly consolidates the three long-standing acts, that is the Trade Unions Act, the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act, and the Industrial Dispute Act. Now, why was this consolidation needed? Over time, these acts have become fragmented and compliance has become complicated. The new code reduces the number of forms by about 30% and cuts the regulatory filing time by about 15%, thereby giving some benefits to the employer. There were different definitions of under all these three acts. Now that has been merged into one single code, and all the procedures are brought under one umbrella. There are three key provisions in this act. First being the trade unions and recognition. A minimum number of 7 workers are required to form a trade union, and for recognition as the negotiating union, a union must now have at least 51% representation. So what this does, this brings clarity for employers and avoids disputes around multiplicity of unions. Second is the standing orders. Standing orders are now mandatory for all establishments employing 300 or more workers. They must be certified within 6 months, and non-compliance attracts a penalty of 10,000. Now, this change gives the organization time to align their policies with the new definitions under the code. And the third one is the layoff and retrenchment. The threshold, now it has been increased to 300 workers. And in case if any layoff is to be given, then the employers have to give a 60 days of notice period and a 15 days average pay for every completed years of service. Now, what does this mean for the employers? What are the practical implications? Employers will need to update their internal policies and ensure that standing orders reflect the new requirements and register their establishments properly. Training is required. Training for HR, operations, and legal teams is necessary so that full compliance is achieved by March 2026. For organizations which are growing, workforce planning will also need to factor in considering the 300 employees threshold more strategically. Now, what is repealed under these acts? Under the section 104 of this IR code, the three acts, as I said earlier, are repealed, but only for the matters that are covered under the IR code. That is the three points which we discussed earlier. So this is being done to ensure that there is no disruption during transition, and any existing rights and liabilities also carry forward unless they conflict with the new provisions. This is the major gist about the IR code. Moving over to the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code, or which is commonly called as OSHWC code. This code is the biggest of the all. It merges 13 acts, and they are the Factories Act, Mines Act, Dock Workers Safety, Health and Welfare Act, Contract Labor Act. We need to understand that the Contract Labor Act, only the OSH aspects are covered under this code, while the rest of the aspects are covered under the Social Security Code. Then the fourth act is the Interstate Migrant Workers Act, Building and Other Construction Workers Act, Plantations Labor Act, BD and Cigar Workers Act, Motor Transport Workers Act, Sales Promotion Employees Act, Working Journalists and Other Newspaper Employees Act, and Working Journalist Formation of Rates and Wages Acts. So these are the 13 acts which are covered under this code. Now, what applies in this code is there would be a single registration for the establishments, single licensing of contractors, health and safety standards, working hours, leave and welfare, and there are certain special provisions for mines, factories, and construction sectors. So we will be going into detail in our third session of this webinar series, wherein we will be highlighting more about the IR code and OSHWC code. Now, what is repealed under this code is under section 143. All the 13 acts are repealed and only one single code is formed to ensure there is continuity. What continues? Inspector appointed under the earlier acts automatically become the inspectors under this code. But the acts are now being repealed, but the existing factory rules, BOCW rules, and the CLRA, OSH aspect rules remain valid unless and until the rules are notified by the government. Current licenses, registrations, or any notifications that are issued under the previous acts are still continue to remain in force, and they will continue to remain unless and until the OSHWC rules are in place. So, for the next 1 or 2 years, organization will be operating in a dual framework: the primary law under the codes, but many of the procedural aspects will still be governed by the older rules. What is the common transition in all the four codes? In all the four codes that we have seen so far, old acts are repealed, but legacy rules, notifications, schemes, and ongoing proceedings will continue unless and until the rules are notified for to operate under the new code, so long as it is consistent with the old acts. Why is this done? This approach ensures a smooth, non-disruptive migration, and in the near future, government will be issuing new rules and schemes gradually. Until then, the employers must operate with a hybrid approach. So we have also done a snapshot table which puts all the acts together. Now, if you see the Code on Wages Act, it is in force from 21 November. What is being implemented? The major substantive provisions, key central acts repealed the four acts, and what still runs is the existing wage and bonus rules. So similarly, for all the four codes, this is the overall summary of it. The main gist being the main acts are repealed, but the legacy rules continue unless and until the rules are notified. So what are the key takeaways for employers and HRs in this? All the four labor codes are now in force as primary legislation. Old central acts are repealed, but the rules and schemes continue until replaced. Organizations must now read their compliance obligations in the language of the code, not the old acts. State rules will play a major role. Monitoring notifications will be key. Internal systems from payroll to contracts to HR manuals to compliance checklist must be updated gradually. And last, we are entering a transition period where primary law is new, but operational rules are still evolving. So that is the basic gist of all the four codes for you. Now, I'd request Pratik to take over the session ahead and give us the big picture on the Code on Wages 2019. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. And it's really overwhelming to know that more than 950, 970 people I can see just going up and down. It's really overwhelming. And sorry for those who will not be able to join. We've got more than 1,300 registrations in all, but I think we will do one more session if required. So today we're going to decode the Code on Wages 2019. We have done this earlier also during 2020, 2021, especially during COVID times. But we're going to do once again because now the big picture has come out that what is the position as on 21st November 2025. So this is important. Not from a lawyer's lens or not from a consultant's lens, but from our HR and payroll lens. What exactly the HR and payroll teams, the finance, and they need to really look out. That's what it is. My objective is very simple. By the end of the session, you should be able to look at any salary structure and say, this is wage code compliant, or this will get us in trouble. I think that's the whole motive which we are trying to do the webinar here. So we'll first build the framework, what's changed, where this code sits in all, and the larger scheme of things in labor reforms. Then we'll get into the fun parts like numbers and examples, and also some 2-3 examples I put up and all. And I'm sure that we will have some polls also. We'll do some quiz also, whether you really understood and all. So let's get into it. That. All right. So quickly, can we just have the next slide, please? Let's do a rewind of the journey. So let's do it. So if you go to see 8th August 2019 is where the wage code got President Rasen and back in there, and it, I would say, slept peacefully up till now in 5 years. And now the real action, now it has come up 2025 and everyone is getting into it that, okay, now what we need to do and all. From that day, wage code becomes the primary wage law, which is 21st November 2025. After that, we are in a transition zone. So let me tell you, there was a big announcement by Labor Secretary as well. Many old rules and notification will continue because of the savings clause, but the mother law has shifted. You know, not mother law as such, but mother act that is shifted. So if you remember one thing from this slide is that wages, your reference code is now wage code, but and not the four acts. That's very clear. Yeah. So what this means for HR and payroll. First, any discussions with salaries, F&F, mini wages, bonus, we should mentally start with wage code. That's where the whole thing is. Second, don't panic about every single notification changing overnight. A lot of minimum wage orders and procedure are deemed to continue till they are replaced. So wages, mini wages, all will be still be continuing. That's very important. So I just wanted to let you know that that's very important for that. So let's see what is an employee. Cover is much wider now. The code uses a broad definition of employee, which is manual, on operational, supervisory, technical, clerical. It doesn't include armed forces, which was earlier also, and apprentice is also definitely not covered. Apprenticeship, they are covered under apprentice, and you can avail the benefits of NAPS and NATs under that scheme. So that's what the whole thing is. The key difference from earlier regime is that in earlier regime you had scheduled employments, whether it's central or state, and some other states didn't have those scheduled employments. But now in the new regime, everything applies to everyone. It applies universally to all employees across all establishments. So for you, the safe assumption is that if someone is on a payroll, the wage code applies to it. That's it. Next slide, please. So let's get into the heart of the code, which is the wages, which everyone is asking question. I saw some other poll questions. They're more of a gratuity. Let me tell you that gratuity will cover in the Social Security Code presentation, which we'll do on Wednesday, and the details will follow through. Today, we're just going to focus on the code of wages, the breakup salary, how we have to do it. So that's very good. So let's understand it. It just the section 2Y of wage code. It is pushed it into three layers. Layer one is all remuneration in money for employment. So whatever the employer gives to employee for the terms and conditions of employment, that is what the layer one is. Layer two, this is the overall remuneration. Layer two is the base. What is the basic? What is DA and retaining allowance? So that's the inclusive part it is. And the layer three is more about exclusions. There are 11 specific exclusions, including bonus, HRA, PF, which we have, covenants, overtime, commission, gratuity, and so on. Internal jargons like CTC, your gross, net, the law doesn't recognize all those. That's in whole HR part which is there. They're fine for HR, but for compliance, you must translate everything into wages. Okay. Versus other stuff, whichever way you want to name it. So one thing in this definition is very clear. The rest of the code is actually much easier if you understand that this is what the wages is. No CTC, no gross. This is what the wages is. Three logical layers. I hope I am audible enough. I'm just looking at some of the Q&As. Yes. All right. My team will also start, simultaneously answer this question. So please feel free to, post as many questions. If you're not able to answer those questions, we will definitely respond to you in a more of an FAQ manner, after the session. And by the way, just to let you know, broader 13 to 14 FAQs, as well as a whole calculation of the wages, how we have to do. We'll be sharing these two documents after the end of the session with the link and all. That's what it is. Okay, so let's get into this mapping of the salary structure. So when you see, this is how a typically salary structure looks like, So on the slide, what we're doing exactly is what your payroll team has to do in real life. Map each component. Basic and DA, straight we go to core wages. I would say wage zero as core wages. HRA, conveyance, LTA, statutory bonus, employer PF to a fund, NPS contribution to a trust, is all sit in the exclusion bucket. Two rule of the thumb I like to use. If it is fixed and looks like pay, assume it's likely wages, unless clearly in the exclusion list. If it's a contribution going to a statutory fund, the code usually treats it more generously. The idea is to make your salary sheet wage code ready by design and not by. So we
Just
just had a small survey here that which of the acts the code will replace, and some of the people have replaced it, told about PF Act, which is not the case. It is first four acts only. PF Act comes in Social Security Code and not under Wage Code. All right, moving on. So let's understand. So key rules of thumb. I told you that the two things are important. I'll just repeat. If it is fixed and looks like pay, assume it's likely wages unless clearly in the exclusion list. If it's a contribution going to any fund, then the code usually treats it more generously. All right. Rest of the information there on the slides. Can we have the next slide, please? I saw some of the poll questions about 50% logic and everything. So let's see what is the logic and mechanics on that. For the provincial sets, why it matters, how do you want to compute the remuneration, which I call it R, what you have to exclude in the from A to I, which is called as exclusions and all. So step one, add up everything the employee actually receives in that period based on this pay slip. Okay, that's your total remuneration. Okay, that is called total remuneration R. Ignore employer pension contributions to statutory funds here. So you need to add up everything, just ignore PF contribution and employer contributions, whatever you have. Then step two, from that, pull out only those items that fall in A to I and are paid to the employee. And that's your exclusion clause. Step three, if E is more than 50% of R, the entire exclusion more than 50% of R, the extra portion will be forcefully added back to wages. Why? Because the law doesn't want to show a fancy CTC of 50,000, but wages or salary or basic wages is 8,000. And the rest name as special allowance and the special that and special this and so many jargons. So structurally, what government wants and for the benefit of workers and employee, wages must be at least half of what you pay. I hope you got the logic and mechanics what the that authority wants to or the government wants to push it. Let us go to look at the example. So I just make it more live example. So let's make this concrete. Here the structure deliberately allows heavy here. Small basic which I've taken like a basic. I've taken more of big HRA, decent conveyance and commission here. When you run the numbers here, total remuneration is around 50,000, right? And then, and the exclusion, if you run, it is around 40,000. That's almost 80% of R. So the code basically says that's not acceptable at all. At least half must be wages. So it pushes 15,000 back into wages and end up wages of 25,000 and exclusion of 25,000. So the message is your basic too skinny and your allowances are obese, the code will put you structure on the diet. That's what I would like to look at it. Remember one thing, when you talk about exclusions between A to I, do not take PF, that is C, because that's a contribution to the fund. Whatever is paid by employer to employee, which is between A to I, that will go as a bucket of the exclusion bucket. And that, if it is less than 50, more than 50%, the balance amount will go in the main wage thing. I will explain that further with some more examples. Let's look at another example here, where I have a balance structure here, with a bit of different mix. So in the second example, we will tilt the structure the other way. We'll have a higher basic here, the 30,000, and we have DA 5,000 here. And now R is still 50,000, but exclusions are only 15,000. So that's 30% if you go to see, right? So the 50% test is happy. There's no add back. Wages stay at 35,000 and that's what it is. So this is the kind of pattern you should be aiming for, especially your HR and payroll professional. Wages comfortably above 50%. So even if something changes a bit, you are still safe. This is what the logic is all about. I hope I'm making sense to you and I hope there are no questions around it. But if at all, I'm happy to take it after the whole session is over. So while I was talking about this, let's clarify one thing. As I told you, A to I, the C component is about employer provident fund, employer's contribution towards pension or provident fund. So this is very important. A common area of confusion is there with everyone, and this started in 2020, 21. A lot of debate around this is what about PF and pension? The code makes it an important distinction, and I like to call it paid fund versus employee test. So this is what my two columns are. If you're paying, if you're a paying employer contribution to EPFO, a recognized PF trust, or a pension fund, and that money goes to the statutory fund, it's excluded from the wages and ignored for the 50% test. Repeating again, if you're paying employer's contribution to EPFO and uh, a recognized PF trust or pension fund, it's excluded from the wages as well as ignored from the 50% test. But if you're depositing money into employee's personal PPF or NPS or investment account directly to the employee's account, economically that's paying the employee and asking them to invest and something like that. If there is a scheme about it, then that's will set in 50% calculation of the exclusion, the E part. So when you design tax efficient structures, keep an eye on which side of the line you are on. So that's what I just wanted to share this. Let's look at one example on the PPF and NPS, which I've worked on this. In this example, you will see both types: PF going to EPFO and NPS. If you see going to the employee's personal NPS account. So when we calculate R, we include personal NPS contribution but ignore EPFO contribution. That's step one. When we calculate E, that's step two. We again include the personal NPS along with HR inconvenience. The good news in the example is that even if we include those, the exclusion is still within 50%. So there is no add back, and wages and are a healthy 63 to 64% of remuneration. I'll give one more example which comes out between my mind. Imagine your basic salary or the wages, the core wages is around 10,000, and all other allowances, A to Y, including PF, is around 7,200, which is PF is typically 12% of wages, that is 1,200. In my example also, if you see the myopic version, you say, okay, 10,000 and 7,200, which means I need to add back, some amount of that. But that's not the case. You need to see 1,200, you do not have to count in that 7,200. So now it becomes 10,000 and 6,000. So out of 6,000, it is still more than 50%. Then that 1,000 will go back to the wage. So your new wage, that basic wage or new wage, where the PF, ESI, gratuity, bonus, all will be calculated, will be 11,000. So just wanted to just share this. Let's look at some other things on the particular definition of wage code, the 15% cap. Now, another nuance in this is in-kind benefits. It's very common in hospitality, manufacturing, remote locations. The code says that, they got staff quarters and everything. The code says that if the wages is paid in kind, say food or accommodation, then only 50% of the total wages can be counted as wages for statutory purpose. Anything beyond 15% is essentially a perk. It doesn't automatically inflate your wage base for PF and bonus. So we don't want to ignore in kind completely, but we don't want to overshoot it. The 15% cap gives a balanced treatment. Only that component will be added as wages. Rest of it will be like an employer cost as such. Let me give you one working example for that as well in the next slide. So if you see here, then what numbers pay her? 1,000, which is like the wages which gets in his pay slip or bank account. And in-kind benefits, say meals and accommodation and everything, is around 10,000 a month. 15% of that 40,000 is 6,000. So only 6,000 out of the 10,000 is counted as wages. So your statutory wage base becomes 46,000 and not 50,000. Okay, that's what it is. When you're putting a CTC, you say, okay, I've given this and that, and my whole CTC or my whole bucket is 50,000 to the employee. That's nothing. It will be up to 46,000 only. So if you operate hostels, you will site accommodation, it's important to value this correctly and apply the logic. Otherwise, your base calculations will be all over the place. That's all I want to say. Next, let's see how the treatment is there in the bonus incentive and ex gratia, which is also part of the payroll, which people are saying. I've seen some of the poll questions more on the how do we treat this performance bonus? How do we treat statutory bonus, ex gratia payments we may have, the relevant employer may have that. So to the one last classification which I wanted to share this before we recap the whole bonus and incentives. Statutory bonus under the code is still excluded from wages. We already saw that part A of the A2I. Even if you choose to pay it as monthly as installments, like a lot of companies I've seen, a lot of contractors, a lot of facility management companies, they do this on a monthly basis. It remains an exclusion for the 50% test, even if it's given on a monthly basis. But performance incentive, or so-called retention bonus, paid regularly, often behave like wages in substance. Those can fall inside the wage bucket. That's very important. So we have the poll showing in terms of wage code readiness, does your organization understand? That's amazing that we are reviewing the salary structures and everything. And believe me, in fact, we can help you guide on those things if you're not yet started or you done just on basic awareness session. Now awareness is completed like 5 years. We just being awareness. It's now time to implement. So it's very important for you guys to know that. Coming back here. So can you just go back to the previous slide, please? I was just explaining that. Yeah. So performance incentive, or so-called retention bonus, is paid regularly and often behave like wages, which is very important. And I clarified that. And ex gratia is nothing but it's paid on exit, maybe gratuity, one-time goodwill, settlement amounts, and all. That will generally be out of the wages. So my suggestion is be deliberate in your naming structure. Statutory bonus can be separated and performance pay clearly defined. That's very important. So that's I wanted to share on this information. And now let's do a quick recap of why key points. So let's pause for 2 seconds and just let's bring this whole thing, right? One, we have one unified definition of wages. Please stop juggling multiple definitions for different acts, all 4 acts, and across all 4 labor codes. It's just one wages. That's what it is. Two, wages are essential, basic plus DA and plus retaining allowance with a clear exclusion bucket, which is there. Three, the 50% rule is your North Star. I would say the new North Star. Wages must be at least half of what you actually pay. Four, PF funds is out. PPF or NPS, whatever personal account you, that will be as per 50% test. But PF, when we talk about between A to Y, you put the PF employer contribution out from the 50% test. Five, ensure in kind has a 50%, 15% cap, and statutory bonus is excluded. But when you talk about, let's see the 50% test, it is the logic is counted if you're paying monthly. So if your team, your payroll, HR team just get this fire, you are 80% there on the wage code. That's what I would believe. 20% we are there to help you out. All right. So this is kind of figuring out the overall wage trend. But let's look out the next thing about the mini wages and how it is. So we just more beyond what are wages and all, and let's look out what it means. Many wages, payment deadlines, deductions. We'll look into that, equal pay penalties, and we'll see about the big picture and all. So how those many wages are fixed. So this tells you the whole story where, first of all, I think Sadaf also had shared this, that one is the national floor wages, which will be determined by central government. And then comes a universal coverage of all types of employment, not just scheduled employments at all. And that's very important. And periodic review they'll have every 5 years about changing this floor wage. This is what it is. So how many are fixed? Fixed by geographical area, fixed by skill categories, and it'll be fixed by type of work. So the state government or even the central government has to go on par or more than the floor wages, which comprise of that. So earlier, if you go to see a floor wage is just an advisory concept, actually it's in statute. Now it will be still the rules till the floor wages. What is it going to be? It'll come out in a different maybe next 3 to 6 months. I would want to just very clearly tell you that please note that wage code is active. Your 50% test and 50% of wages equivalent to total remuneration, you should start doing it right now. The schemes and rules I will be still be working out, but this is a time in next 2 3 months to ensure that you are compliant and you're not having 15 20% of the basic wages towards gross. So that's the whole intent. So if your intent is right and you started working on those things and you have policies and all, then you're very on a safe track. That's what I would just like to share that. Next slide, please. Let's look at the payment of wages. It's very, very critical. This code is actually quite flexible on wage periods. So earlier we just had monthly wages, right? Or daily wages. There's two parts. But now it has daily, weekly, monthly, fortnightly. But what matters when you pay after the period ends. So for most of the employees, the expectation within 7 to 10 days. If it is daily, it is of course then the same day. If it is weekly, then at the same week. And if it is fortnightly, then between 7 to 10 days, depending on the wage period. So this is what you need to ensure you take care and cut off. Your attendance cycle is important. The attendance cycle is going to be a wage. So wage for the month of November. You need to ensure that after your attendance cycle is completed, you need to pay within 7 days of the completion of attendance cycle. So that is your wage period. However, that will be counted as a wage for that particular month. Some companies have between 26 to 25th, 24 to 23rd, or 21 to 20. But if it's for that month, you need to ensure that now you pay. Earlier, it was if you have more than 1,000 employees, it was 10 employees on 10th day. Now it is flat, irrespective of number of employees you have. It will be within 7 days of the wage cycle which you computed. It will be covered, or you need to pay. So the enforcement is it's very much in force right now. This is very important. Where let's see, look at the some of the we can say the penalty frameworks here. First of all, before the penalty framework is there, I would like to just reiterate on the deductions part. I don't know whether we have the slide on the deduction. Can you just go to next slide? If you have deductions, next slide, please. No, no, not previous. Please, next slides. I said next slide. Yeah. So okay. Let me take it. Fine. Just hang on the slide. Let me take you through the. Let me explain you about deductions and a 50% cap. I will send the revised slide here, and it's not mentioned here, but the deductions your family, but it's sitting inside the code, so you can deduct on fines, absence, damages, housing, advances, statutory contribution. Only those heads which the law allows. So there are again fines, damages, housing, advances, all statutory contribution like PF, ESF, profession tax, income tax, labor welfare fund. Now, very critical about the wage code is that there's a clear 50% cap on all deductions. So, which means if your total deduction should not exceed half of the wages, or total deduction should not be more than 50% of the overall wages. So this cap is very important. What if you have more than that? If you have more than that, like you have loans or multiple loans, recovery or advances, canteen, and all those, you may have to then shift it to next month. So ensure that the deductions are not more than 50% of the total wages you're giving. That's what I want to do. Share one information on the deduction part. If I just want to give an example on this, on wages, if it is say 40,000, you add PF, TDS, canteen loan, and everything. Your total deduction, for example, it becomes 22,500. 50% is of the wages of 40,000 is actually 20,000. So you're 2,500 over the cap, right? In that case, you need to reschedule some of the recoveries to the next month. So 40,000, 22,500 is the total deductions. 2,500 will go to next month or something like that, or over the period of time. So this is small control in the payroll structuring we need to do. And will not be breaching these particular section on the deductions. That's what I wanted to share that. So let's see in the enforcement framework. Okay. Many wages earlier, we already shared this. Can you just go to the next slide? Yeah, we already spoke on this. Can you just go to the next slide? All right. This is very, very important about 2 day working day full and final rule. Uh, the law is very, very clear that wages and all emoluments, you need to ensure that you pay within 2 working days of termination. So this is very important because there are 3 ways employee ceases from the employment. One is if he's terminated, second if he resigns, and third if the undertaking or the office or the company closes. We need to ensure that 2 day working day is there, and you have to ensure that full and final is done. So that's what and this particular section says about this 2 days thing. Next. So I've given this particular example out here scenario. These are typically which every HR and payroll team will have this. Employee doing mid-month, what do we do, and how can we pay better than 2 working days and all. So salaries from say 1st to 15th, within 2 working days you need to give them. Notice pay, if it is there, the notice you need to give within 2 days. If any leave encashment is there on the accrual leave, you need to pay within 2 days. Gratuity, if he's eligible, if it is a fixed term contract, then it's eligible every year. If it is normal employment, then it's eligible after 5 years of continuous service, which is typically 4 years and 240 days or so. Then the timeline is around 30 days. Statutory bonus you have, as per the law, if you go to see earlier Bonus Act was there and now it is under part of Social Security Code, separate bonus timeline is within 8 months. So even if you do the FNF, still if you want to pay bonus, bonus will have to be paid within 8 months of your timeline after year accounting. So this is where it is. So in this particular example, total FNF within 2 working days is 90,000 you need to do. Gratuity and prior bonus will share their own timelines. That's what it is. Next slide, please. Oh, I already covered this. So the deductions part I already covered here. It's for you guys to see these deductions important. Let's take a poll here. So in practice, how many days of your organization usually take to full and final? And it is really good. I'm just looking at the poll. I want you guys to just take a moment and see the poll. I'm saying that and it'll be startling to know that how many days people take or HR takes to really do the fulfillment. And it's going to be a rejig of your policies, the way you look at it. Let me tell you, while people are putting a poll, typically when you have to terminate an employee, you know from the start that you have to terminate. And even if a person is on a notice, you know that 30 days, 15 days, the notice is there. Yes, remote working and so many companies and branch office, you may not know, but that's what the rejig of the policies have to be done to be compliant with the provisions of the wage code. So that's very important here. Uh, I want to just share some results here. Majority of companies are actually having the C, which is 8 to 30 days. And that's what you guys need to bring down. And more than 30 days is also so really, really not. Actually, it's not a compliant in the current scheme of things, which is before 21st November also. It is not current scheme of things also. So some of the companies, I'm sure that they have done this between 1 to 2 working days. So kudos to them. But rest of the companies, you need to ensure that you need to really rejig your HR policies around it. All right. Statutory bonus, we have said it's very much there. Employee drawing wages up to notified monthly wage sharing. The whole statutory bonus act itself is covered here. I think that's fine. Just stop sharing there. Thanks, team. But the amount. Let's see. Today, earlier in bonus act, the ceiling was 21,000. It is not told as yet is what is the bonus ceiling rate. So right now it is in transition stage. Right now we assume as it is as 21,000. So we'll have to see some of the notifications or the rules and schemes will come up in next 2 3 months to see what is the cap going to be, or is it going to be common for every employee? Since because employee like overtime, if we're going to see, it is applicable to every worker also and every employee also. Will bonus also will be applicable? We have to see. If it is that, then your really the employees cost will really go up, but we need to see that how the new rules and schemes will be implemented around this bonus under the wage code. Next slide, please. So these are typically, as I earlier also told, that some of the company they give an advance bonus, and they pay bonus at 12 monthly installments. So don't treat it as a vague incentive. Bonus is not incentive at all. If at all, it's paid by 50. So let's do the treatment of 50% test. It still remains a statutory bonus. It is still going to be excluded from the wage definition. But on top of that, to pay a regular performance incentive, usually behave like wages, you need to separate it out. So a safe compliance approach, which I would say, is that statutory bonus as per wage code will be exclusion. Performance incentive or whichever name you call will be part of wage. That one line of clarity which I wanted to tell you very clearly, and that will save a lot of debate in your inspection or dispute. So commission, you may word it as, you may have the policy. If commission is also the same as incentive, then may be excluded. So please note that again, I'm repeating the same thing. See the allowance, the nomenclature between A to I. If you have fancy allowances, the names and all, you need to just align with this A to I. That only will be excluded. The rest, everything is wage. And total, it sums up to be a total remuneration. So just wanted to share that one more thing. Next slide, please. Let's give the equal remuneration. So one of the fourth act is equal remuneration, where companies were generally giving male and female equal remuneration, which was enacted in 1976. But then now the code also says that you can't discriminate in wages for same work, similar work of ground of gender. And now it is good that earlier it was more of men and women binary approach, but now they say that you cannot discriminate in recruitment except wherever law restricts for certain jobs and all. But it spoke about men and women, but now it's more inclusive. And the word gender, which is much more broader, and that opens more door, that inclusive reading, which becomes important when we talk about gender. So it is male, female, or transgender employees. You need to give them equal opportunities. You need to ensure that recruitment, their salaries, wages, whatever you put is all similar. If the same line of work is there, same line of qualification there, same line of job description or job role is there. Next slide, please. Let's look at some of the return inspection. That's very important, where you need to ensure that uh, records and returns and inspections are proper or not. So on the compliance plumbing side, if you go to see, the code talks about registers, pay slips, display, and web-based inspections here. You need to maintain employer registers, master rolls, wage records, and ensure pay slips out in the right format. The now new format has come. The rules will specify the central rules and state rules will be redone and will be published again. And the formats may change, but you need to follow those formats. Very important. One more thing I just wanted to tell you guys that earlier in many different acts, the for any employee to claim some of the uh, claim some of the disgruntlement he had, like for example, he's not paid minimum wages or not got bonus and all. It was between 6 months to 2 years, depending upon the act and all. But now it is 3 years. So you need to keep all the records, starting from 21st November 25 for at least 3 years. And you're open. So for employed is very good. You can always within 3 years, you can say, okay, 2 years back I did not get that bonus, or I was paid less minimum wages. So employers to ensure that they maintain these records very clearly for the next 3 years. And if your data is sitting in a STEM 10 Excel sheets, three email box and all, it's good time to just consolidate it and ensure that you have an inspection readiness checklist in place. Let's look at this. I will digress about the poll, which was very important in enterprise. Can you just display the poll results, please? So it's very, and it's good that formal analytics and reporting is already there. So this is very good because it's also covered under the other Act, Transgender Act, and now everything you need to ensure that you are compliant on this. All right, let's look at the some of the offenses and penalties. And now, very important is that earlier the penalties are very, very less. Government wants to simplify some things and all, get to all the codes in place and all, simplify certain register records, simplify the inspection. The inspector is called more of facilitator than inspector. But if you do not comply, then the penalties are huge. One more thing, while the rules and schemes are yet to be notified after 21st November 25, and things will work as rebuild and savings, which my team already has said from the past acts. Okay, so when you have to comply, you may have to follow the past act and rules and comply until and unless the new rules are not notified. Say you have licenses, you have registers to be maintained, you have renewals in place, and so on and so forth. But if you do not comply or you falter some compliance, then offenses penalty, this is where it will come. So say paying less than amount under wage code, all this will be, a kind of penalties which you need to bear now. So you're looking at fines from 50,000 first offense to jail to higher fines. This is very critical for everyone here. Non-maintenance record itself starts from 10,000 its cap. But again, it ties back to the penalty, if repeated. So the real point is penalties are no longer theoretical. It is web-based inspections, mind you, it's going to happen. So it's easier for any authorities to detect patterns. You will get a mail like how you get in PF and ESS. You'll get a mail and you may have to upload certain share and records and all. No more a person goes with a hard copy and maybe go to the officer and just submit the documents and get an acknowledgement. You have to upload documents and all, and you need to ensure that when you upload soft copy or PDF copies, it's all going to be scanned more deeper. So you need to ensure you have the right format and things in place. But there is a catch here. There is also, as I say, that in the wage code and across all the codes, inspector is now treated as a facilitator. So there is a good compounding concept which is also introduced in this wage code. Can you have next slide, please? So code does give an exit route. I had a situation where because of something, the shop and inspector, he did not get the records in time when he had inspected certain premises, and labor inspector for that, and under some of the wages and everything, and under Mini Wages Act and Payment of Wages Act and all. And no one responded to the notice. And directly there was summons in the name of the owners and directors. And it was a very big embarrassment for the HR teams and the legal teams there. But the new wage code, since it's saying that it's more of facilitating, it says they can compound offenses. So, what do you mean by this compounding? Uh, if you are punishable, you can actually come and just pay 50% of the fine, even if it is coming on the court, even if the court date is there before it is finalized by the judge, the penalty or criminal procedure, you can still compound it, just pay it, and you can close it. So you'll not be facing a full criminal trial. So that's what the compounding offense section 56 talks about. So this is useful when non-compliance is real, you corrected it, and you want to avoid overhead of litigation. Sometimes it happens, right? Your intent is good and all, but compounding is just not free pass. You compounded it, but you need to ensure that you do not repeat that offense within 5 years. If you repeat the offense within 5 years, and if you caught, then again you cannot compound at all, and you need to pay fines, penalties, or whatever the trial would be. So that's I just wanted to share that. And mind you, even if you compound, say for a low, you're not paid mini wages or difference of mini wages, for example, a bonus not paid, you may have to pay 50% penalty, which the authority may ask you. But that doesn't leave room that, okay, fine, I'm okay not to pay wages and all. You still have to pay the wages or the difference, whatever you're non-compliant on. So whatever you owe to the employee, you still have to pay apart from this compounding. Let me give you an example on the compounding. So these expenses here just gives you a sense of scale here. Underpayment case as a first offense, maximum fine is 50,000. Compounding amount is say 25,000 here. For general non-compliance, it may be the provisions, register record, whatever it is. General non-compliant 20,000 and compounding is 10,000. And for record keeping lapses, as I told earlier, it is 10,000. You can fine for 5,000 rupees as compound. So message what we give to all the clients is that aim to design systems so that you never need this. You inherit legacy issues in using compounding strategically as part of your cleanup plan. That's what I would suggest as an advisor to all my clients. All right, let's look at the earlier versus now snapshot here, the wage code. So this slides pulls the whole journey together. Before that, let's have a quick poll. And I hope that the A question, the answer to the A question is now, relatively better. Understanding the wage definition and 50% rule. I hope that you got it very nicely. I'm also going to share you the FAQs and a complete section 2 kit also after this presentation. But this is important that you need to get into the crux of this and don't waste any more time. Okay, now the act is come. Now we will wait for the rules, schemes, and all. As an organization, as an employer, since you partner with us and all, we need to ensure that we work together and ensure that there is no embarrassment before the it's an embarrassment with the authorities and all. You're done, and intent is good to ensure that you're compliant, especially around the wage structuring end, and slowly move it towards it. By the time PF schemes are rolled out, by the time ESR rules are rolled out, everything is rolled out, you are ready to go all out. And this is no, then you don't waste time in actually then going back. And mind you, it can also happen that when the rules and schemes are rolled out, it may go retrospective effect as on 21st November 2025. So even if it comes after 6 months, suddenly you find that you need to go back 6 months and just correct it. So this now the time is to act. That's what I just wanted to share that. So we'll end this poll. The result I'm just sharing here. I hope now today I've answered this question, which is there as a restructuring the salary component, the wage component. That's what our intent is, and this is where we are here. All right. So very clearly, just coming back to the slide. So here, many capital laws are earlier with the payment of wages, mini wages, and you can say equal remuneration, bonus, and all. But now everything is into one. Coverage is much more broader, as I told. Wage definition is unified. There's now a statutory floor wage. F&F times are sharper, and penalties sit in one coherent framework. Inspections move towards facilitation plus data-driven oversight rather than just only surprise visits. But you may just get a surprise mail also, you don't know. But then they'll give you time, 7 days, 8 days to really see. They will help you to comply, and they will help you to, okay, fine, you need to comply in this particular format. For example, you're not following the format, they may also tell you, they give me a chance also to format. But in the end, even if you do not follow, then you have the penalties and all, as I told you. So if you're thinking in the old act by silos, there's a cue to shift to code first mindset. That's what I would just say. So let me just put down some of the action points for all my clients in HR. What exactly you need to do. Next slide, please. First of all, let's review your CTC templates and key salary bands against the 50% wage rule. I have already given the formula. I have already explained the slides and all, and you'll also get this PPT for sure. But you need to see every point. AR is remuneration, E is exclusion, what goes inside. Then do the 50% wage test, and then final, you may have to rejig your wage, and that is where that particular new wage would be applicable for PF, ESI, a bonus, and gratuity. Redesign your FNF SOP, which is very critical for 2 working days. I saw a lot of companies doing 8 days, 20 days, and 1 month and more than a month and all. So we need to really rejig that. Uh, it is realistic, but not so aspirational, but you may have to make it more realistic. Third, update the policies, letters, HRIs to reflect the new definitions and timelines. And you also know that if the companies are especially contractors and not issuing appointment letters now it's a mandate. So ensure that it's in place. Fourth, train your payroll teams on the gender inclusive pay logic, equal pay logic. If it is not factored there, they need to change those things. Very important. Fifth, tidy up your records, registers, and pay slips, and start thinking inspection-ready data. That's very important. We are here to help you here, but this is where your tools and platforms can help you. And you're not doing this on spreadsheets, so you may having or your own HRMS systems and all. You need to talk to your HRMS vendors and align with them that you need to change this as per the new labor code, especially the new wage code. Uh, I have finished my presentation here, and I think we completed in a kind of an hour's time, a little 1 hour, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and thank you for participating. We will take another 5 to 10 minutes if we have questions. Let's go to the question answer session and see if you're able to answer some of them. And I can see this presentation. I'm looking at the poll. I thank you very much for. I think more than a lot of people are already participating here. I leave this poll active here right now. Let them respond to that. Let me just go to the Q&A here. So let me just go from top to bottom, and I would want most of the things are answered also by my team here. You just look at the answer sections as well, please. So whatever are answered here. Let me just look into the open answers and we will see. So let me take this first question of Gaurav. Act mentions 50% salary should be eligible for gratuity calculation, whereas 50% base. I hope now this is clarified here. So I think I will go further. Peter Manuel's question also, I'm sure that it is clarified here now. And I've already taken this on this. How do you consider annual performance bonus and commissions? This is also clarified here. Payment to superannuation fund, anything which is going to the fund, it can be ignored because it's going to fund. It's not going to the employee. It's very important to note. And I think just to answer Anuja to your question, uh, when it is from employer to employee, and the definition very clearly states that. You please go to section 2Y and the definition. When the 50% logic which is there, when you employer pays to employee, okay, and not to any fund, superannuation fund, gratuity fund, or PF fund, or something those lines, then that will be considered under this section, 50% logic. Else it will not be considered. That's what I just wanted to let you know. So to answer your question, superannuation fund also, if it is clear, then it will not be covered. Variable pay, I have already answered this. Minimum wages, we can still have one such division of core wages, inclusion, exclusion. Yeah, I mean, it's already there. So whatever you treat, whatever names you want to put wages and all, ensure that if your fancy allowances are not forming part of your exclusions, will all be included in the wage. That is where it is. You have car or car lease or driver, all those allowances. Uh, you can put it as different allowances, okay, as part of A2I, but see to it that A2I, these allowances do not exceed again more than 50% of the overall total remuneration. I think almost similar questions and things are there, which are there in place. FNF in 2 days, yes. There are practical things where bank details not submitted by employee or car lease not closed can hold FNF. Law is very clear that you need to fill in. I told you, what is the FNF? When we talk about FNF as part of the code of wages, FNF means your salary, your leave encashment, and all those things have to be closed in 2 days. Now, if your card list is not closed and you need to do, these are all issues. We'll wait for what rules come up and what framework will come up and all. So right now, it's an issue. Yes, absconding place or termination, again, the same logic applies. You need to ensure that within 2 days it is done. Technically, you cannot hold any partial specific salary during notice period, but FNF has to be done in 2 days. Whichever way, see, you need to ensure that you have your policies framed it in a manner that it's not an embarrassment at the last moment and you're not non-compliant. So that's very important. So you may also have that during the notice period, you may pay partial and you may hold back, but you need to ensure once he exits, after the date of exit, within 2 days, you need to pay him his full and final, whatever it is. Absconding employees are going to be an issue here, where you need to ensure that whatever you have to hold it and whatever the permutation combination you need to do, you may be doing it, but you need to still complete his exit in 2 days when you talk about full and final, which means even if you have to retain certain amount and as per the policy, you have say 50,000 of salary, you have to retain 20,000 or something, you do that and you say that this is your full and final settlement and that is 2 days. And hopefully there is no dispute after that. So what do you mean with full and final? You need to ensure that the employee is getting his whatever his check or whatever he is worked minus any deduction which is possible, and he gets his leave encashment and everything in place. And this whole working you will do in 2 days. So what you've been doing in 30 days or 20 days, the same logic apply that how we'll do it do 2 days. Things the same. Whether it is for absconding employees, whether it is for remote employees, all of it. Rest of the things are about the allowances and all, and I hope that already I've clarified here. For absconding cases also, I told you. Yes, we will be sharing 3 parts to it, the link and all, the PPT, as well as the FAQs, which we have done, as well as, a complete section 2Y itself. So that's where we are today. So let me see how many have. Oh, thank you very much for this. More than 900 people attended and everything. Thank you very much. That this session was very extremely useful. Please remember that we will be having on Wednesday, next Wednesday, we will be having the session. Over to you, Dhanaswi, if you want to just end this whole session here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time and engagement in our part one of the three-part series. We hope today's insight on the big rewrite on wage architecture have helped you better understand the evolving landscape of India's labor framework. I would like to give a special thanks to our speakers, Mr. Pratik Vaidya, Mr. Archit Kulkarni, and Ms. Sadaf Khan for sharing their valuable expertise. We will share the FAQs document shortly for your reference. So please feel free to make the most of it. And we look forward to having all of you with us in the next session on Wednesday, the 3rd December, on the part two, the Social Protection 2.0, which is the Social Security Code 2020. as we continue to decode the complexities of India's labor reforms. The registration link will also be shared shortly. So, everybody, have a wonderful weekend ahead, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.